When the soul is placed in that environment, it becomes very ecstatic. But as long as it's placed within this material world, it's miserable. Now, the difficulty is that if one has to lead this life in the material world, and yet our nature is to be in the spiritual world, then how do we carry on our living functions? So this is given by the Bhagavad Gita, this knowledge. That knowledge actually is given by all scriptures, that one has to use this human form of life not simply for increasing the animal functions of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, but we should use this human form of life to develop knowledge of who we actually are. Anyone can understand that when I was a small child, I had a small child's body, a young man's body, a middle-aged man's body, and an old man's body. And I can remember all of these changes. So who is the I that is remembering the changes of the body? Who is that I which is fixed despite the changes of the body? Just like you can understand, when we refer to my arm, my leg, my head, I don't say I arm, I leg, I head. It's mine. So who does it belong to? It belongs to the soul within the body. Now there's a difference between the soul and the mind. The mind is a subtle material element. Just like earth is a gross material element, mind, intelligence, and ego are subtle material elements. But beyond them is the spiritual element of the soul. And it is the soul that is actually the possessor of the body. The difficulty is that the modern educational system gives all stress simply to this body. That's no better than giving stress to one's clothing as opposed to one's body. Just like my clothing is something which I change from day to day. Similarly, we change bodies from boyhood to youthhood to old age. And at the time of death, we're going to change our body again. But who it is that is changing the body, that knowledge is not available, and that knowledge is not being stressed. Now, throughout the world, people are fighting with each other. There's wars going on between one nation and another, between one community and another, between one family member and another. Why? Because they're fighting on the basis of this bodily covering. As far as the soul goes, there's no complaint. There's no fight. We don't say that the soul is not designated by any material designation. Of course, as far as the body goes, there's obvious differences. There's old bodies, there's young bodies. There's Fijian bodies, there's American bodies. There's Christian bodies, there's Hindu bodies. There's small bodies, there are big bodies. There's human bodies, there are animal bodies. So the body is different, and on account of bodily designation, people are coming into conflict. Is life simply meant to be lived for 50, 60, 70 years to be temporarily happy, sometimes miserable, and then dying like an animal? Or is there something superior, a superior purpose in life? According to the Bhagavad Gita, this material world is compared to be just like a prison house, and we're all prisoners. What is that prison house? It's a prison house for persons who have become criminal. Criminal in the sense that they have broken the laws of the spiritual world or kingdom of God. And so they're confined within this material prison house, and they're made to suffer. What is the suffering? The suffering is ignorance. Ignorance of who we are. As long as we don't understand who we are, we have to remain within this material world. So real education or real knowledge means to teach who are you, where are you from, and where are you going to. If we simply think that I'm Fijian, that can change. A Fijian can get another citizenship. If someone says, oh, I'm Christian, oh, that can change. You can change your religion. If someone says, I'm a small man, oh, that can change. There's so many vitamins which can build up your body. If someone says, I'm a man, nowadays they can even change that and you can become a woman. They got that also. You know, so these kind of designations are very temporary. They're very temporary. Now, nowadays, practically the whole education system is reinforcing these type of bodily designations. In fact, you'll find that the whole civilization is more or less formed around pleasing the body. But despite all of the arrangements for pleasing the body, people are still suffering half the time. They're suffering like anything. I mean, I see it not only in America, but even in this country. In the United States, you'd be shocked to see that despite their tremendous advancement in technology and their very high standard of living, people can't even go to sleep without taking a sleeping pill nowadays. Do you know that people watch television in the United States on an average of 6 hours a day? And people are always dissatisfied. These psychiatrists are doing the greatest business in the United States. Oh, tremendous business, because everybody's got big mental problems. 1 out of every 2 marriages ends in divorce in the United States. 1 out of every 2 marriages. And now more than 1 out of every 2 pregnancies ends in abortion. And now another statistic you'll be interested to know, that the overall expenditure for defense systems around the world is $500 billion a year. That's how much money is spent on people defending themselves against other people. Now try to see what this civilization is. And what is the reason for this civilization becoming the way it is? People don't know what the goal of life is, because they don't know who they are. Just like if you're suffering, say, from that disease of forgetfulness known as amnesia, you don't know where you live. You don't know what your occupation is. You don't know who your family members are. In fact, you don't know what to do, because your whole identity is destroyed by the disease known as amnesia or forgetfulness. So similarly, because we are suffering from a very severe case of forgetfulness, we have forgotten that we're the soul within the body, we don't know what to do. And instead of developing our spiritual life, you see, we're simply developing this make-believe life of this material world. At night, sometimes you dream that you're a big king. Let's say you dream that you're a king, so you're a chief, or a prime minister. You could dream so many things, right? For 2 hours, you're enjoying like anything. You're on top, you're on top of the heap. You got everybody serving you, and you're the king of the whole world, see? And then you wake up and you realize that, oh boy, tomorrow's my examination. Okay. So in the same way, that dream lasted for 2 hours. But I say that this other dream of, say, being a student is going to last 4 years. Or maybe it lasted 15 years. And then suddenly you get another dream. Now I'm, and the new dream is now I'm a businessman. Or now I'm a teacher myself instead of being a student. Or some woman's, now I'm a mother, or I got a big family, you see. And that dream goes on until one day you got to retire from work. Or your kids grow up and they say, okay, I'm leaving home. And then suddenly you realize, now I'm not a mother anymore because all my kids are gone, or my job's gone, and then you're an old person, you see. And then one day you're lying on your deathbed, you see, and suddenly you realize, now I'm giving up this body too. This dream is going to go too. So actually, this whole life is a big dream. Taken from the viewpoint of eternity, these 80 years of our life are no more than snapping the fingers. It's that much of a dream. So what is reality? Reality is that which endures. Just like someone said, the difference between the living body and the dead body, there's very little difference. But the difference is in the soul, which doesn't die at the time of death. And that's why we all want to be eternal. So real knowledge is gained from books which give us this kind of information. You'll find, for example, that many universities throughout the world now are beginning to take the books which our society publishes. We publish about 100 volumes of books, each about 400 pages long. And they deal with very detailed information about what constitutes the material world and the anti-material world. For instance, although these books were written nearly 5,000 years ago, you'll find chapters dealing with the presence of the atom, the existence of the atom. The Germans, for example, in the Second World War, used these books to make the atomic bomb, but they misused them because they didn't develop the other knowledge of standard morality. This knowledge, you see, of the existence of life within the body, known as the soul, doesn't come simply by academic study. This is the problem. People think that you can cram and gain knowledge. You can cram and gain material knowledge, but you can't cram and get spiritual knowledge. Spiritual knowledge comes from purity, and purity means to transcend the animal activities of life. Spiritual purity means to develop an understanding and a service attitude towards God. Nowadays, people are becoming godless. 300 years ago, when the U.S. government was formed, they put on their currency notes, "In God we trust." You see. Nowadays, when you take a survey poll in the United States, probably half the population say, "I don't believe that there is a God." But the founders of that country, every single one of them said there was God. Now, why are they becoming godless? Why are they becoming godless? Because instead of worshiping God, people are told, you don't have to worship God. You just get yourself a good education, you get a good job, and you can get everything you want. Formerly, a man thought, if I don't go to church, or I don't go to a temple, then so many mishaps are going to happen, so much misfortune is going to befall